Tilea's Troubles. Part 5. The Chancellors. Spring 2401. Just across the bridge from the southern gate of Scorsio. There was sufficient breeze to whip the flag in a lively fashion, revealing the white baton and yellow half-sun emblem of the Compagnia del Sole. Its bearer was the black-bearded Banhalt, a sturdily built ensign born far to the north in the Empire, who had served the company from its very beginnings. Like most ensigns, it was not just his flag that marked him out, but also his elaborate clothes. His helmet was ringed with an alarmingly upstanding crown of yellow and white ostrich feathers. His party-coloured breeches were slit in the shape of the company's emblem, trimmed with braid, and his long beard was of a northern fashion. They had just left the Trantian town by the southern gate, where the river was bridged. The town was not fully moated, but from this side appeared to be so. Ahead of Banhalt rode two of the company's chancellors, Ottaviano and Baccio. They too wore the company's colours of burgundy and blue, and the company's emblem was embroidered upon their left shoulders. Baccio was mounted on a black rounsey, his companion on a grey. Earlier they had been busy preparing for the trip, then conversing with the guards on the gate regarding their right to pass. Now that they were properly on their way, Baccio could pick up a conversation they had begun the previous night. "How about Urbino?" he asked. "Would they hire us?" Ottaviano rode with his arm crooked, hand on hip, one of several affectations he believed made him appear more gentlemanly. He was the senior of the two of them, with 2 years' experience as a chancellor. Baccio had only recently taken on the role, and was here as much to learn as to assist. They had been friends for some time, which is what had motivated Ottaviano to press for Baccio's promotion from mere clerk. "The Urbimans," said Ottaviano, "are likely to be prosperous enough to afford the whole company, I'll grant you that. But do they need to? Their old enemy Trantio has laid aside all ambitions to reconquer the realm. The Trantians went to war over the matter in the time of the Republic, but as the tyrant Prince Scarenzo hates everything the Republic did, not least its rebellion against his family's rule, he's unlikely to want to continue the old policy concerning Urbino. Besides, if there was still enmity between the two, it would be very bad form for us to leave our current employer and join immediately with his enemy." "Well, we are mercenaries," complained Baccio. "Why should we care what Prince Scarenzo thinks when we're no longer contracted to him?" "I would not care at all," Ottaviano said. "But who would want to hire us in future, knowing that we might so easily, simply for coin, turn against them to join their enemies?" "But you just said that Trantio and Urbino are not at war." "That does not make them friends," explained Ottaviano. "Besides, the point I'm trying to make is that if Urbino is no longer threatened by Trantio, then why would they want to hire a company the size of ours?" The Compagnia del Sole was the biggest condotter force in the whole Tilean peninsula, and could claim an almost wholly unblemished reputation, arising from the quality of their soldiers and the honour of their commanders. They had only once before divided their strength to take separate contracts, after a bitter argument which left the two parts never likely to rejoin as one again. Otherwise, there was only the odd occasion when some amongst them left the company to take employment as a new petty company, or to join another company. Currently, the Compagnia had halberdiers and pikemen, artillery and heavy horse, crossbowmen both mounted and upon foot, as well as a small town's worth of dependents and hangers-on. All but the latter drilled every morning to maintain their readiness and prove their worth. For the last 2 years, Prince Scarenzo of Trantio had marched them about in the Trantine hills upon manoeuvres, occasionally fighting mock battles with them, and had never once found fault. He paraded them through his city streets monthly, as if proud of them. Best of all, he had so far been happy to merely play at soldiers with them, having required no actual fighting. Now, however, as the 8th week before the end of the firmer period of their contract had passed without agreement being reached concerning re-employment, the company was permitted by that contract to send forth chancellors to negotiate with potential new employers. It was not that the company was keen to leave Prince Girenzo's employment, rather that they needed to demonstrate better bids made by others to convince him to agree to better terms. The Compagnia's commander, the Condottiere General Micheletto Fortebraccio, believed that Girenzo had tired of drill and manoeuvres and was finally ready to make war, which bode well for the negotiation of new and better terms. Baccio was not yet ready to yield on the matter of Urbino. "Surely Miragliano is close enough to pose a threat to Urbino?" he asked. "Does not every state in the north harbour fears concerning the vampire duke's intentions?" This made Ottaviano laugh. Baccio's habit of not thinking things through seemed well ingrained. Still smiling, he looked his friend in the eye. "Are you suggesting you want to fight the already dead? To face deadly vampires and poison-clawed ghouls and foul, stinking hordes of zombies?" "Well, no," admitted Baccio, apparently confused by his friend's merriment at the prospect. But to be paid well would be good." "To be paid well is everything," thought Ottaviano. "If Urbino offers us better terms than our current contract with Prince Girenzo," he said, "that makes it much easier to demand improved terms from him." "It does seem likely," suggested Baccio, "that Urbino will be willing to pay very generously for help in defending against the horrors of the north." "Not necessarily. They will know the vampire duke cannot yet reach Urbino, nor for some time. They're wily merchants, likely to pay unnecessary expenses. Suppose the Duke of Miragliano does sally forth. Then he must first get past Urbino and Via Daza before he reaches Urbino. I have a doubt either will stand idly by as the walking dead shamble through their realm. And, like I said, that's just supposing he leaves Miragliano. Who knows what a vampire wants? Perhaps he will simply sit where he is, ruling his bony court and drinking from goblets of blood." "He could cross the gulf," suggested Baccio. "I do not think the dead steer ships," answered Ottaviano. Yet even as he said it, he felt a distinct lack of conviction. "Dead sailors do," said Baccio, speaking Ottaviano's fears for him. Ottaviano pondered a moment. Undead ships were not unheard of. There was once a whole fleet of zombie pirates who preyed upon visitors to the shores of Lustria. The vampire Harkon commanded them. Then something occurred to him. "It's much more likely the vampire duke rules dead soldiers and peasants, not dead sailors. What sort of seaman would stay in Miragliano when all hell was breaking loose? Any sailor worth his salt would have got away, and quick about it." "I suppose," Baccio muttered grudgingly. "Tell me," asked Ottaviano, narrowing his eyes, "why does Urbino fascinate you so?" "In truth," said Baccio, "because it's not too far away." "Ha! So it is idleness that makes you so keen." The jibe made Baccio frown. "Not so. 'Tis simply an added expense for us to travel far. And if the journey takes too long, then there's less time to renegotiate with Prince Girenzo. I was thinking only of the practicalities and profits." Suddenly he perked up. "Well then, if not Urbino, then what about the Miraglianan lord Guglielmo? They say he escaped his uncle's deathly turning and intends to gather a force to claim what is rightfully his. They say the Church of More will surely back him, to make it another holy war." Ottaviano laughed even louder than before. Tilea had had enough of holy wars. They had even tried a holiest war. All such endeavours proved to be the product of worldly ambition, and ultimately descended into the usual messy and desperate squabbles, as factions formed and opinions differed. "We will not get as good terms from Lord Guglielmo," Ottaviano suggested. "He hasn't the means to pay us. No doubt he would promise us great rewards, to be paid after the war, but if we tell that to Prince Girenzo, he will no doubt quickly give us much better promises." anyone would happily hire us if we were willing to accept their word alone as our price. We want gold, not promises." "It was a stupid idea anyway," Baccio admitted apologetically. "It would mean we not only had to fight the undead, but must also march deep into their hellish domain. That's too much." The party was passing a thatched cottage along the hedge-lined road that led from the bridge. Behind Ban Halt, the standard-bearer, marched the Chancellor's Guard, consisting of 2 Zweihanders and 4 halberdiers. Bringing up the rear was the young servant Donno, leading a mule laden with supplies. The general had offered the Chancellors more guards, but Ottaviano did not see the need. Mercenaries looking for a new contract were hardly likely to be carrying much gold, and so were unlikely to attract the attention of robbers. Besides, any Tilean would reconsider causing trouble at the mere sight of their banner, rather than because of their number. Few would want to make an enemy of the Compagnia del Sole. They might be mercenaries, but they looked after their own, and there was honour amongst them. The company had both the urge and the means to exact vengeance. Baccio fell silent for a while. The flag fluttered, hooves clopped, harnesses jangled. Eventually he spoke again. "You know, if we did gain an offer of good terms in some far-away place, and Prince Gorenzo refuses to match it, then the whole company will be forced to slog it all the way there." "If so," said Ottaviano, "then let's hope we head southwards, as that would not be so bad at all. I'd rather fight greenskins than the undead any day. The southern cities and towns are looking to better their defences now that the Wag has taken root in the lands around Monte Castello. Lucchini is hiring Gedic Mamadou's Sons of the Desert, building barracks for them. Alcente has hired Marienburgers to help them. Some say they've sold their realm to the northern merchants. I don't know the exact terms, but whatever the agreement, an army of Marienburgers now guards them." Baccio snorted. So not much work for us, then?" "On the contrary, Baccio. If the trouble in Riverno ends, or some tyrant grabs power there for himself, then they might want to do something about opposing the Wag. And who's to say that Remus, Pavona, Riverno, Portamaggiore, even Lucchini and Alcente believe they have sufficient strength to counter the goblins' threat? In this worrying time, any or all might offer us better terms compared to the Medici prince." Baccio nodded, whilst looking off into the distance, then turned to look at his comrade. "The general said it will be only a matter of weeks before Prince Gorenzo goes to war, and not against Miragliano or goblins. He's furious about the Pavonan seizure of Astiano, perhaps afraid that his realm will be next. Tell me, in truth, Ottaviano, our mission, our new contract, are we trying to leave Trantio just as the real fighting starts?" "Never think that," commanded Ottaviano. "We are the Compagnia del Sole, Mamidia's free sons. We do not shirk battle, nor would we shun a chance for plunder. Aut spoliis optimis aut mors gloriosa. I suggest you look at the situation in either of 2 ways. If you want to feel noble, then you can believe we take employment fighting greenskins or the undead because we would rather kill those than fellow Tileans. Surely it is right and proper that Tileans should stand together against such evil, instead of squabbling amongst themselves. If, however, you want to feel clever, then tell yourself that we are looking for employment, because that way Prince Gorenzo will be forced to offer us better terms. He will not want to lose us just at the moment he needs us most. His hand will be forced." "Forced to open his purse?" laughed Baccio. "I suppose the first, most noble cause is something you have rehearsed ready for the ears of our prospective employers." "Ah, you know me well," exclaimed Ottaviano. "As you obviously doubt I could actually be so nobly motivated, then you may as well hear my true thoughts upon the matter. I do not want to go north. I'm for staying here or going south. If we are to serve the prince in war, then he can bloody well pay a good price for us. We do not sell ourselves cheaply. It is one thing to be on hand drilling and practising postures, another thing altogether to take on Pavona. For that we should expect more pay. It is the prince's own fault that he allowed the Pavonans to gain the initiative, and foolishly found himself needing us at the very moment our contract is coming to an end." If instead we are to go south, then perchance that will mean nothing more than parading our strength for some southern lord, so that the greenskins take fright and look elsewhere for their cruel sports. If it were for me to choose, I'd go south, where our very presence in the field may be sufficient to break the foe's resolve. If not that, then stay here to argue with the Pavonans. But not the north. The walking dead have forgotten how to be afraid. They will never flee, but instead come straight at us, no matter how strong we are. Our men would die, and worse still, rise again to fight us. Ottaviano wondered if the men behind could hear him. Glancing around, he decided that maybe Van Halt could, but not the others. That was not so bad. Van Halt was a veteran who had no doubt fathomed the depths of the mercenary way of thinking a long time ago. Perhaps Baccio caught sight of the glance, and knew it for what it was, for he now spoke quietly. So we avoid fighting the undead under any terms. Instead, we either get better terms from Prince Gorenzo to fight his neighbours, or adequate terms to go south and scare the greenskins away. You have it. Except there might well be enough gold in the north for us to go. It'd have to be a lot, but someone might have sufficient. The Compagnia has fought the undead before, and lived to tell the tale. Oh, so in the end it is all about the pay. Ottaviano grinned broadly and patted the purse hanging from his saddle pommel, making the coins chink. Has it ever been anything else?